My guest today is Polly Vickery. In 2019, Polly was on holiday in France with her husband and their 10-month-old son. They were driving home from the beach when their car was hit by a truck. Her son was killed instantly, and her husband Larry died in hospital a day later. She was trapped in the back of the car and airlifted to hospital, where she was put into a coma and woken up 3 days later. She was sure that her son had died, but thought Larry had been knocked out, but then was told he had died as well. She was left unable to walk due to broken pelvis and spent 3 months in a wheelchair after she finally left hospital. She started to work on recovering both physically and mentally when she decided to have another child and went on to have her daughter Florence by sperm donor. In the meantime, she also met her current partner Ben. Before the accident, she ran a fashion label with her sister, all very East London hipster, she says, but she gave it up when she had Max and got a proper job before she got pregnant. She has even pitched on Dragon's Den, and she's now a web designer and living back in Bristol. She says, to the outside world, I have a wonderful life, but it is marked by the worst tragedy. So welcome, Polly, to the show. How lovely to have you on. It's
Hi.
very heavy duty bio to read for you, reading it
Mm.
as a mum, as a wife. Yeah, it really jumped into my heart. So because the show is called Unbroken, the very first question that I ask everybody is, what does that word unbroken mean to you?
Well, I had a little look online and I had a little look around at the meaning of the word, and I found a phrase that said it was continuous and unstopping. And I feel like that is kind of, sorry, getting teary.
It's quite all right. I think both of us might be doing that quite a lot in
Yeah.
this conversation. It's
I
fine.
feel like that's kind of how my life has been. It sort of stopped very abruptly, but it did still continue. So that's kind of what I take from the meaning of that word. And even though I feel like I have been broken, I'm not unbroken because I'm still here.
You are still here and you become a mother again. I mean, you'll always be a mum to Max, just in a very different way. And
No, I still, like, looking back now, I don't know how I've quite managed to deal with it all. But I remember, like, they took I think because I was in a coma, they woke me up and then they had a thing down my throat. I think it was helping me breathe.
yeah.
Not But I couldn't speak, so I had to write everything on a board to ask questions.
Mhm.
And that was pretty
Well, imagine that would just lead to more frustration.
yeah, it was quite frustrating. And then just kind of, yeah, it's probably best that I couldn't speak, because probably the the words and things I would have said would have been, yeah, not nice for anyone to hear. But
Yeah, but it must have been so isolating, or was anyone able to come out to stay with you, to visit you?
yeah, so my mum and dad were actually on the holiday with us,
Okay.
so they were there in the hospital. My sister had come over as well. And then Larry's brother came over a couple of days later. It's all a bit of a blur, to be honest. I was
It
on so
must
much
be.
morphine and things as well that it was all very kind of, and I was in and out of consciousness quite a lot.
But it
Yeah.
comforts me. I had this feeling of you in a foreign language all by yourself, so it does comfort me in some way that you
No,
weren't
yeah,
completely isolated.
no, I wasn't entirely on my own. No.
And eventually, 3 months later, you leave and you come back to the UK. You had this idea that you'd love to be a mother again, and the only way
Yeah.
at that time you thought was a sperm donor. So how did all that come about?
I think I always thought, even very early on, I thought, because I was very apprehensive of having Max. I
Hmm.
kind of feel like I was 36 when I had him. I know that's not old, but
Hmm.
considering I'd been with Larry for so long,
Yeah.
I kind of kept sort of moving it down the road a bit. Oh, I'm enjoying working and I'm enjoying having a nice, like, going out for dinner and doing
Hmm.
all those nice things. So I was a bit apprehensive to become a mum. I wasn't sure if I definitely wanted to do it, and I didn't know whether I was ready. And then when I had him, I was just like, how have I not done this sooner? This is
I know.
ridiculous. Like, why did I put this off for so long? So when he died, I knew that I wanted to become a mum again, and I knew that that was something that was really important.
Hmm.
But I think, well, I must have been I was 37 when the accident happened. Um, And so I didn't have all the time in the world. And the idea of trying to meet someone, which I wasn't ready to do,
Yeah.
and then be ready to meet someone and then be with them long enough to have thinking about having a baby with them, it just seemed like too long a timeline and too many variables. And I felt like I'd had so much taken away from me, so many choices made for me that I didn't choose to have, and a situation I was put in that I never expected to be in. I felt like that was something I could take control of.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
I decided, to have her by sperm donor. And I went to the clinic and they said that I had a low egg reserve. And that was it then. I was like, right, got
Gotta
to get
do
on with
this.
this now. This is happening.
And
Yeah.
so once you went to the sperm donor center and became pregnant, how long does that process take?
I think it was, so my first, I had IVF.
Hmm.
So my first attempt failed, and then the second attempt worked. I think it was about four months in total from start to finish. Yeah.
Which is pretty amazing, really, isn't it? When you hear of people having IVF after IVF after IVF
Yeah.
and spending all the money and all the heartache. So then
Yeah.
along comes little
Florence.
Florence. Sorry, I shortened her name there.
No, that's all right. I call her
Yeah.
Flo as well.
And she's a little toddler now, isn't she? She's 2 or something.
Yeah, she's 2.5. Yeah.
And what difference has that made?
Oh, she's made such a big difference. Sorry, I'm getting teary again.
So I'm a mum of 3 girls. Look, I'm tearing up as well. It's absolutely fine.
Yeah. She's just given me like much more of a focus. She's given me like back my purpose in life. Yeah.
Yeah, because I guess you're always going to have a Larry and Max shape missing in your heart, really, and it's not to fill that with
Yeah.
somebody else. It's to be that mother again, because once you've been a mum, it's very hard, isn't it?
Yeah, it's so hard to go back to this being on my own and just not even having Larry, but like, or Max, and just being like by myself. And I do remember being in the hospital, and I remember my mum having to feed me. And I just remember thinking, my God, like this time last week I was feeding Max,
Yes.
and now I'm in a hospital bed and I'm like being a baby, or like a
Yeah.
baby again, and my mum's having to feed me. Like, how has this happened? How is this
Does,
how?
does it still
Yeah.
feel very surreal?
Yeah, even when you were just reading out the story at the beginning, it was just like, oh God, that's me. That is me.
You're
That is my
thinking that poor
story.
woman, and then you realise it's you.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
it's true. That's so true. I do. And I look back at me when it all happened and I just think, oh, I just feel so bad for me. But it was, yeah, it's strange. I think
It,
it's how you kind of process it, isn't it?
Absolutely. I think, well, I get the sense for you having Florence has obviously brightened and lightened up your life, but it must be so bittersweet.
Yeah, it really is. She's the best thing. And but I do find her birthdays are so exciting and fun, but I do find them really difficult as well, because I think of all the birthdays that Max never got
Max
to
will
have.
never have. I know.
Yeah, let yourself enjoy the things that you can enjoy still, and yeah, just keep focusing on, like, set yourself a goal and keep focusing on what you want to do and keep moving forward.
Yeah, and I think when you say be kind, I hear how you used to judge yourself. That's becoming aware that we judge ourselves and learning to drop that judgment. That's a way of really being kind.
Yeah, I'm still trying every day,
But
but
I think that's an important message as well. You know, it's not just because you've met someone else and you have a little toddler now, that doesn't fix it. You know, you're
yeah, I think
still
that's what it
living
was. I
with
spent
grief.
so long trying to fix it, and I kept thinking, if I do this, it will make me feel better, it'll fix this. And I've kind of come to the realization now that it's never going to be fixed. It's never going to wake up and spring out of bed one morning and be like, oh, right, chapter closed. Now I'm on to this. It is always going to be an ongoing process, but that's okay, because that's how it is. Yeah.
Well, I just want to thank you, Polly, so much for coming on and for sharing your story with me publicly for the first time. I do think you are really brave, because I know how exposing that must feel or can feel. But I love your advice of just take it day by day. It's such an important message. So thank you so much for coming on
Thank
my
you.
show. You're welcome.